I got half of one of the little baskets of stuff, and it was over $200. Y'all not hearing me? Let me do this
Or
story
just be a
right
little
here.
more disturbing than we want to go.
Yeah. Let me read this right here. It says, women's rights. It says, we have no one. The women and girls sold as brides in Kashmir. For as little as $35, Indian women and girls are being sold by traffickers and forced into marriages against their will. This is Al Jazeera. It says, trafficking is gravely underreported in India, explains Turishika Sarvish, an assistant professor of sociology at the Al-Lagar Muslim University in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. For as little as $35, Indian women and girls are being sold by traffickers and forced into marriages against their will. Sometimes the families of women and children who are recovered and brought back don't want to acknowledge the fact that they were trafficked, as trafficking in popular perception is mostly understood as sexual exploitation, she says, adding that there is a huge stigma attached to this. Nazima Begum was kidnapped in West Bengal and transported 1,600 kilometers to India to Indian-administered Kashmir to marry a man who paid traffickers for a bride. Many other Indian women and girls have met a similar fate. The traffickers ruined my life. I cannot think of going back, she says. Nazima, 29, lives in the single room in Srinagar and Tufik, and her two older children, aged 7 and 10. Her husband died from heart disease 4 months ago, and although there is sadness in her voice, she says she tries to appear strong for her children. Hers was neither a love marriage nor an arranged one. Nazima was kidnapped from her home state of West Bengal and transported 600 kilometers, 1,000 miles, to Kashmir, where she was forced to marry a man 20 years her senior who had paid her traffickers $250 for a bride. With his death, Nazima has been left to support her children alone as she contemplates an uncertain future. Wow. Super sad situation there. And the part where they said the stigma. So after this even happens to the girls, they don't want to even admit it or because the
Well,
people are
they're
gonna
soiled
right. That's how they're gonna be
in their
looked at.
culture.
Yeah, that's how they're gonna be looked at. You already damaged goods. Nobody want nothing to do with you now, even though wasn't your fault and you had nothing to do with it. You had no power over it.
And that's all for less than 2 or 3 dates here in America.
Fuck, bro. That's crazy. Man, one date. Dating is expensive as hell.
Depends on if you're trying to get her drunk or not.
Let me read a couple comments. It says the
And
marriage
how
is
much she can drink. Them
uh
Louisiana girls, man. Don't try to drink them.
yeah, don't try to
Don't
outdrink
Dutch
them.
on that one.
Let me read some comments. It says the marriage is invalid if the bride not agree with the wedding. That's not true. Let me read
Not
another
there.
comment. It says this break my heart. I'm so sorry for them. We live in a horrible world. Another comment, it says, this is the worst thing I've read today. Another comment, it says, Kashmir is not a part of India. Another comment, it says, hey, look who is talking about women's rights. First of all, I'm a proud citizen of India, and nothing happens here like this in our Indian culture. Women are worshipped since decades. We as a country are not like other nations where women can't even remove their hijab and take selfie. Shocking is that you are talking about this issue because Saudi is historically known as destination for human trafficking of the peoples from South Asia. Women conditions are far better in India than whole world. We are not like Saudi where women can't drive, can't travel without male guardian, no equal rights as like of men's to a women, and etc., etc. Can write a book on it. Why don't you people raise your voices against China, who is doing genocide of Uyghurs? but all matters to you people is propaganda. India is eternal. No one can match us. Soon India will become superpower too, and you should start learn how to to behave in front of superpower country. Jai Hinden. These are what people do a lot of times. Like maybe this is overblown or whatever, but clearly this kind of thing is happening. So what happens is people feel like you're attacking their country when you bring up stuff like this, you know, and then they want to point at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does suck, but we're not talking about Saudi Arabia right now. We're talking about something that happened in India. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they pointed out Kashmir is not India.
Well, they're saying that they
It,
don't. That's
it
kind
is
of
a
like
different.
the United States is saying Florida is not United States. It's
No, that's more. That's more like saying Mexico is not southern Texas.
eh, you know, okay. But I think that people just like, instead of focusing on the problem, and trying to fix it or whatever, then they just start saying that other people do it too, or they do it worse. It's worse over there. And that's what I hear so much here in the
No,
United States.
man, there was a lot of good stuff said in that little rant they did until they kind of lost it at the end with the India will become a superpower too. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the whole energy that this person is coming from.
but there's some other stuff said there that was pretty good. There, like, India is not like that. India is pretty decent about the way it treats its women and stuff like that. But when you're measuring that not against the world, but against that area of the world. I
Yeah.
mean, and there's still some strife about that. But yes, generally in India, women are much more free to pursue life, happiness, things like that. A lot of the forced marriages and stuff that we knew of, even back in the 80s when we were kids, that was still happening, is like, there's a lot more consent and agreement involved, just social and family pressure now. Not They can still say no, but now it's more of a I'll cut you off if you say no. It's like, fine, I'll go become a doctor in America.
Yeah. Well, I have to say this, stuff, maybe not to the extreme of this, but stuff like this happens here in the United States too.
Oh no,
Uh,
if that were done by an American, I could actually hear the yeehaw in it.
cause stuff like that does happen. And I see a lot of like, they get Asian wives here in the United States, and they don't have nowhere to go. Like they were, I don't know if you could call it trafficking, but it's a similar type of situation where you get
Well, man,
someone from another country.
I'm serving that all the time at Lasagna House. A lot of these old guys,
Me too.
they're 60, 65 years old, and they've got 35, 40-year-old Asian brides and other countries. And, a couple of kids, most of them 5, 10 years old, right in that area. I mean,
I wait on a lot of families like
and
that.
none of them seem to be the worldly types who have gone to travel much.
And maybe they don't, you can only assume, but how many options did that person have? Can they get out? Can they escape? Can they leave if they wanted to?
And most of them are pretty well-to-do guys. I mean, most
Exactly.
of them either own or had a business or were pretty well up in a business. Nice little retirement packages if they're retired.
And they're really controlling over these women, and the women barely get to speak and barely get to make any decisions. They'll order their food for them, whatever. So, this guy, trying to get all defensive about what's happening, in Kashmir, um, but and then pointing at other countries. What I'm saying is, this. oppression of women is happening all over the world. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. See, like that one saying, 110% true from Kashmir.
yes, that's how I was
That's
about to
that.
read that.
The other one had some crazy energy about not in India, blah, and it was good that they pointed out, hey, there's we're not the same.
Another comment, it says, "It's horrible how people in this world has treated women. Some countries worse than others, but even the best countries have citizens who discriminate to some degree." That's kind of what I was saying. Another comment, it says, "Why you always post negative news posts against India, and why don't you post positive news posts?"
Because it's Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera. Another comment, it says, "Very unfortunate this does happen. I have seen the ground reality and my heart goes out to the victims." Another one, it says, "This is so sad." Another one, it says, "Oh my, they deserve to have their own life. I'm sorry." Another one, it says, "Hopefully there isn't cross-border human trafficking." This one, it says, "This is where the U.S. is headed with the war on women. We have to end human trafficking everywhere." That's a great comment right there. We have to attack this
we
everywhere.
need to attack that here in the United States and at our borders first. Get our house right before we go in other people's houses,
Yeah.
bringing our morality and our law to them,
What do
whether
they
they want
say?
it or not.
What do they say? Sweep around your own back door
More
before
like
you
don't
go.
shit in your own house.
You know, the views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone.
Choose your destiny.
Or don't shit where you sleep or eat.
It says people with mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed by police.